Hello everyone, it's Graham Coath with another My Music. Today I'm going to be speaking to my friend here, Elliot Cole. But first, before all of that, we must meet the man again with his laptop who's stuck in a hotel room somewhere.
I need to get going, mate. I'll see you later.
Bless him. For about 2 years now, he's been eating the same smoothie every single day. His digestive system must be rather great. So, Elliot, thanks for joining me.
Hi.
For My Music. I was saying earlier, I do enjoy your mise en scène there, your backdrop of gadgets and gizmos.
Yeah,
you have an impressive set, sir.
It's becoming a little ridiculous, but thank you.
Yeah. And what's really nice to see is the kind of analog type patch bay stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's become a big part of how I make music, but it's could not be further at all removed from the kind of music that we're here to talk about today.
No.
And it's a thing I appreciate about music is that there's a million different ways to do it, and I can engage my technical, analytical, experimental brain in one way, and also connect with, old stories and tell music with traditional instruments also. Yeah.
So let's go straight into that and talk about Tam Lin, this piece of music would you want to call it a piece of music or pieces of music that you've put together, which are obviously in a very traditional frame. Where was the starting block of that?
Yeah, so my dear friend Fiona, who collaborated with me on this project, she's had a lifelong interest in the ballads of the British Isles, and so this is a story that she grew up with. Tam Lin, it's one of the more popular of these ballads. There's this book of child ballads collected a few hundred years ago that are just have tons and tons of stories in them. And a popular one is this story of Tam Lin, about a girl who goes out into the woods and has an adventure and becomes pregnant and has to rescue her fairy lover from the fairy world. And so this has been a big part of her life, and I think kind of self-identity as an Irish musician growing up. And so she brought it to me and said, I want to write this into a piece. Can you help me? And so we worked together and told this old story in a new way with a mix of instruments that's probably never been seen all together at once. Baroque instruments, folk instruments, modern instruments, all together.
Yeah. How do you start to decide what you need to leave as authentic and what you can play with, as it was,
so that the words that we just don't understand are legible?
All the ones that you can't pronounce. Yeah.
All the ones that we can't pronounce, we subbed in, and this is a story that has a kind of frightening and ambiguous dimension to it, which is what happens in the woods between Jenny and Tam Lin, and it's definitely has a kind of rape feel, although then Jenny decides that Tam Lin is her true love. And so there's different ways of interpreting her agency, her character, her motivations, and we I guess chose to emphasize a version of the story that Fiona connects with herself, that makes more sense. I don't know, that emphasizes more that this is something that Jenny chooses and wants, which then she goes and becomes the heroine for him.
Yeah.
And so, that takes, we didn't change anything for that, but that's kind of just like an emphasis and interpretation that we had in mind. And I guess I did rewrite some a handful of stanzas in about 2/3 of the way through to get for musical reasons.
Yeah. Did you make any kind of musical reference points as you were researching this project and thinking about how you were going to take this project on? Did you make kind of any reference points in terms of other artists that had perhaps dealt with traditional music before you?
Yeah, so that's kind of it's less my world, though I've definitely played a lot of folk music. But Fiona really grew up in that tradition. Her whole family are Irish musicians, and so I think most of the references are just like in her bones, But like Steel Eye Span is a band that she loves from the 70s, kind of the folk revival, rock and roll crossover kind of thing. And both of us, I think, have Jesus Christ Superstar, the rock opera, as major influences on us in general. So yeah, we're not pulling any particular tunes from the past, though we did write a reel for a jam section, and there are different forms that are used. There's a medieval dance in there that's based on an old form, but all the material is kind of just like what happens when we sing these lines and put some chords with it.
Yeah, I'm not going to say there's a lot, but there's a few bands that are beginning to sort of take traditional folk music and these pieces that have had a life for a while and pull them in a slightly more contemporary direction. I mean, I was listening actually over last weekend to the new Unthanks album. I don't know whether you've
heard that. No.
Okay. Which and I think they began to do it with Mount the Air, that piece that they had a few years back. But certainly the newer album, it's got more kind of a mixture of their traditional twin voices or multiple harmony voices, the traditional instruments, the violins and everything else in there as well. But then you can hear the odd bit of electronica in the background, with just giving it a little bit of an edge. I mean, was that a kind of similar process to you?
I guess I would say that I understand why people have mixed feelings about that sort of thing. And I guess I could understand why they might bring those feelings to this project, because, traditions are, a lot of people have an attitude towards the tradition that it's something that you should protect. And I totally get that. And I'm really, really happy that there are people who've committed their lives to protecting and reproducing snapshots in time from the past. And, we certainly, you see in the band, in the recording, there's a lot of musicians in this band who are playing traditional instruments, and they have whole lives and careers based on preserving historical performance practice on these instruments and pursuing that version of authenticity. And I guess I would just say that I also really appreciate that there are people who don't feel that exactly is their mission, but still want to play and experience and explore the past as well. And I'm one of those people. I don't have a sort of a partisan interest in the tradition. I have a curious interest, and I just do what I do, and that's my own version of authenticity.
Yeah, and as I say, I think it's a very difficult line to tread because there is so much history there, and it's almost like, when you see people on these programs and they go and visit a library and they pull out that old document and they've got to put the gloves on before they turn the book pages. It's like, you're actually touching the book. But ultimately, I always watch those programs as well and think, but unless someone makes this program and actually opens those pages and shows, for once actually shows people the inside of the book. No one knows it exists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's something with music. Yes, it needs to, you know, when something's got that tradition there and that historical value to it as well, there's a historical value that needs to be respected. But at the same time, music has always been about, and actually these pieces of music wouldn't have existed in a lot of ways unless they've been passed down. Mm-hmm. And music is about being passed down, and actually as it gets passed down, changed slightly as well. So I mean, it's within the sort of nature of music, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's something yes, it can be preserved, but also needs to be relived. And so there's one project that is presenting it as other people heard it a long time ago. But I think it's an equally important project to relive it in whatever way is authentic for you, and keep telling the story so that it stays a living thing.
And bring a new audience to it by maybe making it slightly more accessible or slightly...
Yeah. I don't know if I would say that ours does that. I mean, it is very fun to listen to. It's very exciting and engaging, but it's not also...
It's not pop.
That's not really my mission either. It's not like I'm trying to like win over converts for something or other. I'm just making what I like.
I think that's very honest of you. I think though you will though in some respects. I think you will. I think when anyone sort of takes an interpretation of something and maybe puts a little bit of a stamp on it in some way that kind of brings it up to date slightly, I think you will by that nature perhaps lead someone into listening to that music who may not have listened to it before.
Sure.
And I think that's a great thing. And actually I also think that from experience that, like most of us who are really into music, all start there. You perhaps all the way start with something that's maybe a little bit more accessible, and then actually as you get into it you go, oh well, where did that come from? And then you actually find the originals because you journey back from that point.
Yeah, and it's that journey that makes being a music fan interesting.
It does indeed. And just as if by magic, we now have Fiona to join us as well. So I'm just going to hide this so that I can bring her in. There we go. Hello, Fiona and other.
Yes.
Who's this we have?
This is Geordie.
Hello, Geordie.
Hi. Sorry about that.
Are you the one that kept Fiona from coming on in the first place?
You guessed it.
Oh, totally. I don't know whether you've been listening to the conversation so far.
I just hopped on. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So we've been talking about Kate Bush and Spinal Tap, and how you were such a great fan, and you really, when you performed this live, you really wanted to come out of a giant pod. And no, none of that. I just wanted to see your face.
I was listening to you and then seeing Elliot laughing so much. So.
Mainly the conversation so far has really been around, you've got a piece of music here which is very much sort of based around a tradition and a traditional piece of music and a history, and something that needs to be revered to some extent because it has that tradition attached to it, but you have made it your own, and where the balance line is between actually taking it forward in some ways and making it slightly more maybe in some ways slightly more accessible to a slightly broader audience.
Yeah, we hope so.
But treading that line with the respect aspect of keeping it something that people can still respect as, oh, that's where it came from. Right. And I was saying, actually, I think it's great that you do stuff like this, because for me, that's what that gets people interested in the original in the first place.
Right.
Yeah?
Yes. I mean, so sorry, were you... asking for.
Yeah, I was just asking. Yeah, is that kind of how you feel about it as well?
Yeah, I mean I can kind of answer this from two angles. A lot of my professional artistic life has taken. Sorry,
That's all right.
This route.
We allow singing on the show.
Yeah.
Hello.
He's I've been away the past like 4 days with a string of performances, so he's really clingy today on me. I would try to put him down, but he keeps crying every time I do. So yes. So how I would answer this, the one personally, the thing that has become at sort of the cornerstone of my musical professional life is blending a couple different genres and styles and musical worlds together. This has become kind of a recently popular movement in the classical world, and that's I mean the really broad term of the classical world. So, but just people who come from the classical tradition who are performing all types of music, contemporary way back to early, and but blending that, doing this so-called crossover things, which is bringing folk music into those traditions, because there historically is a lot of crossover in the repertoire. It's just really the approach and how they're interpreted and performed, and you know, of course, that's not the case with the symphony, but loads of other stuff, especially in choral music and song repertoire, has a lot of bleed. And then I personally enjoy in the folk world bringing a classical element into that, which there might be a little bit less of, but that's a really interesting thing for me. I think the biggest thing, though, let me try. What can I do for you? You want to hold this way? Is this better? Are you not entertained?
Oh, hello.
Okay. Yeah, with telling this story, with Tam Lin in particular, I thought it was a story I loved, so I wanted to do it for that reason. I thought it would also be a good piece of media to use in the way that we did, because it is capitalizing on a corpus of works that have already taken Tam Lin in this direction. It, in particular, out of many other ballads, is a little bit more in the consciousness of people outside of the super folk world already, because it's been turned into a children's book. And for whatever reason, and that's probably a separate conversation about why it's such an enduring story and an enduring story, why people are so drawn to it, is it's been made into a couple little different movies on YouTube, animated, and so many people have said it before. Way more folk bands, and even folk bands who have set many, many other ballads. For some reason, Tam Lin is the one that people outside of the super folk listening club world know. So it was good to use for that reason. But I mean, the biggest thing is that you know, folk music, there's a couple ways to define it, but really it's like music of the people that reaches people in a way that sort of high art music doesn't. And that's what we were trying to do, is that's exactly what you said. Actually, by bringing other elements into it, it's reaching more people and becoming like more the people's song than if it became limited to just, oh, you're not doing this in a very, very traditional folk way. But the idea with folk music is to be accessible. So if we blend other things in this to be accessible to even more people, to me, that is sticking very much with the folk tradition, which, you know, it's about not being static with anything. So
yeah,
you know, there's
I think that's always been part of the I believe that's always been part of the folk tradition, which is what I was saying to Elliot. And you know, it's the thing is, as artists, in order for you to do a piece of work like this justice, you have to go into the tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you have to understand where it comes from in order for you to do anything to push it forward.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And for us, that was a really important thing. I mean, for me, that's an important thing because that's my background and that's my true love is folk music and that sound. You know, whether it's the harmonies that we choose or writing a modal melody or singing it a certain way, I like incorporating a folk element to everything I do. But you know, if someone wanted to set this as a completely not folk sounding opera, it's still a story that's out there that's open to that kind of thing. Of course, loads of folk tales have been turned into operas and everything. So there's really there's no barrier, of course. But in our case, our goal was to incorporate many styles that could sorry, I'm blanking on the word here, but be attractive to or catch many different people who are into many different styles in our net. Music theater or classical music or folk music or rock or spy music, you know, like Elliot.
I think ultimately that the thing with any folk music, and that's why it existed in the first place, is that the story goes down.
Right.
That's the really important. That's the really.
That's the. I mean, that's what a ballad is more than a song. Is the poem or
the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not so long ago, I've had. In fact, she's been on here a couple of times. We've had Six Crowd on here from the Ukraine, who's been, getting. I don't know whether you've heard about her work, etc. But she's been.
I actually didn't hear the name. Could you say it one more time?
Six Crowd is the name of her little project. Okay. She's a singer-songwriter from the Ukraine, and she's making electronic versions of basically old babushka songs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right, and so she's but to do that, she's having to go and find and understand and take these pieces that have got this history, and she's bringing them into a different performance, but ultimately she's opening up the book.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And like, if you look at, I mean, I don't want to pull a number out of my ass, but if you look at so many movies and I mean any kind of medium or like any kind of music, like people are looking back to old legends for the basis for those or the inspiration, no matter how they're interpreted. I mean, that's probably, I want to say that's like the majority of where, I mean, like it's every Disney movie, right? Like it's so yeah. I mean, it's
every Marvel movie, really.
Right,
yeah, absolutely. But this is also a tradition that runs through music, full stop. Even outside of folk music, it's a tradition that runs there, and it's like I've had bands on here who are, well known for their alternative music, or that they're well known within the sort of rock genre or whatever. And then when you start talking to them, you always get back to either, some original blues artist or an original folk artist, but you always end up back in the same places.
Yeah, right.
However, right, because the story starts somewhere and it gets moved from there to there to there to there, and and that's because most musicians are music fans as well. That's what's going to happen, because they will do their work. They will investigate where did this come from? This came from, why am I interested in this? Oh, it came from here. And then that came from there. And then that came from, and look where we end up, and we all end up roughly in the same areas.
Really. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, of course, knowing the history of this was really important to us as well. I mean, I'm super into tracing as far back as I can figure out, or has anyone else has done the scholarship that I can read about where ballads were first collected or who from or anything like that. So, but yes, coming from, I mean, this what I've done since the earliest ages, play like very traditional folk music. So coming from that world, I'm all about taking it into other realms as well.
So both of you, what would you like people to take away from this project? What would you like them to, apart from enjoying the music?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Foremost, I hope that they think it's a bop and feel great at the end of it. No. Elliot, go ahead. I'm gonna put the toy together for him really quickly.
Great. Yeah. I mean, my main hope is that they hear the whole thing. It is rather long for a piece of music. For a song, it's a 27-minute long whole story, and it's a
prog rock anthem. It's fine.
So my first hope is just that people hear it and see it through all of the changes, because it really goes on a journey. It's really not where it starts when it ends, and the story. I want people to connect with the story. It definitely says a lot to me about. I mean, it's a beautiful metaphor for love in our lives as we change. Like the core of the drama is this rescue, where Jenny has to rescue Tam Lin by pulling him off a horse, and then he's going to turn into all of these different animals. He's going to turn into a bear and an ox and a snake and a burning coal, and I really wanted to put a shark in there, but Fiona said no.
I was for the shark. You talked yourself out of the shark.
That was one of the parts where the words got rewritten, but yeah, so this I love this metaphor, and I think about it a lot in my life, and I think that's another thing that I think is like at the heart of this that I would want to share, is this vision of holding on to someone or holding on to yourself through all of the changes of life, which can be scary and violent, and it can sometimes feel like we're becoming many, many things right in a fast succession, and it's hard to hold on. So this image of redemption through hanging on and not being afraid while the thing that, or maybe the person that you're holding on to is scary.
It's a message that's very relevant for today. Very relevant for today. Is another thing that you'd perhaps both like to get out of this, that, I mean, this is obviously a studio project, etc. as well, but would you like people to listen to this and then actually think, I'd like to hear this kind of music live?
We would love for people who especially present concerts to fall in love with this piece and decide that it's worth getting all 12 musicians who live in different states in America together to perform it, because we would love opportunities to perform, but it's a bit logistically expensive.
It's challenging. I want to add to that too. I mean, that's my I don't want to use the word selfish. That is my personal dearest hope, is that we keep getting to do this because it's so much fun. I think two things I'll say. One is that as we were writing it and developing it, and we talked to this illustrator, a dear friend of mine, Sasha Whelm, who created all of these watercolors that we present in live performance behind us, projected to help tell the story. So it took on that multimedia element. And as we thought about it more, I think this is the kind of thing that it could be presented in a lot of ways. And that's become my hope, is that if a theater company wanted to put it on in conjunction or in combination with another sort of short half-hour production, that maybe there's a way that we, the band, are incorporated, hopefully not hidden in a pit, but more like the band. And then
it could be like ABBA.
It could be like staged. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right. You could have the suits. You could just have holograms of yourselves. It'd be great.
Yeah, right. But any sort of thing. And I think there's a lot of ways. I think there's a lot of opportunity in, I hope, what we created. I can imagine some ideas, even though actually how to like implement them, I would need theater tech people or choreographers or whatever, to people with more expertise. But
okay, so if you've got other creative people out there listening,
yes,
listen to the piece of music. If you're inspired, you come up with the ideas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because we've had a hard time defining it as far as what genre we would call it, and I hope that is an open door, instead of being able to say, this is, oh my goodness, like this is a musical, or this is a play, or this is a cantata, or this is, I mean, we stuck different words with it, rock opera, and like it's a little bit like, when we even thought about how to advertise it, it's just like, well, what crowd do we advertise it to? What musical world? Not even what musical world, but what visual, like, how do you perform it? What do we call this? It's hard to do on its own because it's only a half hour. So what do you pad it out with? But I think instead of sort of feeling limited because it doesn't fit into a genre, and because of how long it is or whatever, that it can be used in so many variety of scenarios. The other thing that I wanted to say is, the spirit of this piece, when we wrote it, we did know eventually, but not too far in advance of actually getting together, what instrumental forces we were going to have. The voice is kind of a different thing. Like we wrote it for certain voice types, but as far as the instruments go, we had written a lot of it before we knew exactly who was going to show up with what instruments, and people brought other instruments that they were like, well, maybe we could use this instead. now that we're 3 days into rehearsal, that improvisatory element of it, I hope would be an invitation for people, if they want to put this piece on themselves, to do that with any forces that fit within the ranges and the abilities of the instruments available. One of the members of our band, Kivy, actually did this with his college students, and they had a saxophone playing one of the parts, which was not an instrument that we had. It didn't matter because as long as you can still create the piece, and you can get the parts sung and the story told, you can, and you could do this with 40 people instead of 12. I mean, maybe 10 or 8 is the minimum to get things covered. But yeah, I guess a dream of mine, Elliot and I haven't actually ever talked about this, but he's very used to this because he writes music for other ensembles and for people to buy and do. Is that other people would do it too. I mean, yes, we want to be invited to perform at places, but if other people want to do it in a different way than we do because they don't have a gamba or whatever esoteric instruments we involve, then great. I mean, it's to be a very hopefully unlimiting piece of music, even with its limitations of needing big forces and everything like that. So, and then the last thing you said, I'll just add really quickly. I mean, a personal mission of mine is not that it's totally underrepresented or anything, but it's just to get people hearing Scottish traditional music and interested in Scottish culture. And that's what Makaris does as a broad group. And we do a lot of historical recreation and modern premieres of old pieces and everything as well. And that's what my band focuses on. That's my heritage and everything. So if people who aren't from the folk tradition listen to this piece and are like, like what's a Scottish folk band sound like? Or what are other Scottish ballads? It's just, to me, it's one of the best song traditions in the world. They just have the best song repertoire. So
is that museum of traditional Scottish music still in Inverness?
I don't know. I have not gotten to spend nearly as much time in Scotland as I would like to. So
because if anyone's listening and they know, can we get this piece of music in there?
Yes, please.
as a piece. That'd be great. It's the most amazing museum. I was being asked yesterday online. I was being asked yesterday by someone that does a lot of curation at different museums. What's my favorite museum I've ever been to? And that was it.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's
an amazing museum.
We got to go.
We got to go. I haven't been to Inverness, actually. I drove right by it one time, but I was on a time schedule. I couldn't. I know you're.
Oh, I did the whole Inverness and then over to Lewis and Harris.
Okay, yeah. We came,
which is like another world.
Yeah,
right?
Actually, the time I passed Inverness, was crossing over to head over to the Isle of Skye, which was, I'm not complaining, I got to go there, but
crazy,
yeah.
Absolutely
oh my
crazy.
God. Yeah.
So listen, I think there's some really good ideas here, which we're going to carry forward. So listen, what we'd like to see in 2023 is this whole piece performed by lots of different folk musicians at every single folk festival in the country.
Yes.
Coordinated by Fiona and Elliot.
Yeah, I would invite people. Don't shy away.
I'm not making a headache for you.
No, it's not a typical concert set of a bunch of songs, but yeah,
so if you'd like to take part in that, we can make that happen. Okay, just write in, let us know. I'll pass on the details. Elliot and Fiona will be coordinating the whole thing. So every single folk festival you go to see, Sidmouth down the road from me here. This piece will be played by whoever has learnt it, and it will be great.
That would be great.
And you can play it on any instrument you like, apart from that plastic thing that Jack Black played on the that TV show the other day.
What did he have? Was it the little mouth?
It's like he went on one of the American TV shows with one of those giant plastic saxophone things.
Oh, okay.
Well, no one's playing that. But flutes, lyres, anything else like
anything else? Yeah, definitely real saxophones, because we've had that. But
yeah.
Graham, where are you based?
I'm based in Somerset.
In Somerset, okay.
Yeah. So our nearest folk festival is Sidmouth. Have you ever played Sidmouth?
No. The only festival that my band was booked for Derby in 2020, but we did it virtually, of course, because we weren't able to get over there.
Oh, and I believe Malmesbury nearby as well has a wonderful folk festival. I have been over there for the odd folk gig before now.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I've not able to. I mean, of course, we're in the States. I've not been able to go to a ton. The only other one I've been to is Shrewsbury. But my cousin lives in Derby, and she's really. I mean, she plays with like 10 different bands that play at all of those. So.
There we go. Well, you see, we're just surrounded by folk music here.
I know, yeah.
It's just part of it. If I open the window now, all you'd hear is folk music.
And the dancing over there, the folk dancing scene at every festival is so
Elliot, Fiona, it's been a pleasure having you on today to talk about your piece of music called Tam Lin. When's it available? How do people get it? That's the important thing.
Yeah, are you able to share links with your audience or put this on a page? How's it work?
Yeah, I can do that.
Great. Well, I'm going to put you in this chat here, the YouTube link that we would really like to be the first experience for people. We've made a beautiful video with the band, and it's also available on all the streaming services and Bandcamp, so you can find it wherever you want. It's Tam Lin, and we're Elliot, Cole, and Fiona Gillespie, and Makaris is the name of the band.
I just have to feed him.
There you go. So we literally, I've put that comment in so people will see that, just in case they couldn't read that. You'll also now see that coming across the bottom. There's the YouTube link as well, just like that.
Type fast. It's
well, it's just like that, and there it goes. So thank you, Elliot, Fiona. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Do go and investigate and pay them some money as well, because just downloading this stuff or streaming it on some silly black box in the corner of your room doesn't actually pay anybody. So
let me give you the link then for Bandcamp.
Well, absolutely, give me the link for Bandcamp as well. Go on then, do that.
I'm gonna hop off. My mom has to run. She's holding
do.
but he's probably losing his marbles.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I was late. Thank you so much for having us.
Fiona.
No, absolute pleasure. Here we are. There's also in the comments link as well, the Bandcamp link, so you can go there and spend money. There we go.
Thanks so much, Graham.
Well, why wouldn't you? Bye for now, Elliot.
Great to meet you.
Thanks for joining us on My Music Today. Bye.
Thank you.